Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're exploring the ultimate shortcut to becoming an AI power user. And I don't mean someone who just messes around with a chatbot every now and then.
Right.
We are taking you on a journey today from writing your very first, truly effective AI prompt all the way up to understanding how to deploy autonomous AI agents that actually execute complex workflows on your behalf. Think of this as your toolkit for taking back your time.
And stripping the friction out of your daily work.
Exactly. And to get us there, we've synthesized 4 definitive guides straight from the frontier of AI development. We're pulling from Google's Gemini prompting guide, plus 3 incredibly detailed manuals from OpenAI that cover identifying AI use cases, deploying AI in the enterprise, and a practical guide to building agents.
It's a massive amount of information to synthesize, but what really stands out is how highly systematic and surprisingly accessible it all is once you understand the underlying frameworks.
Yeah, it really is.
And frankly, mastering this right now is crucial. One of the OpenAI guides highlights the staggering statistic: 39% of U.S. adults have used AI in just the last 2 years.
Wow.
To put that kind of speed into perspective, it took the internet 2 full years just to reach 20% adoption. The technology is moving at breakneck speed, but the principles of how to actually make it work for you are very logical.
Okay, let's unpack this because the first big hurdle is just knowing how to talk to these systems. The fundamental problem highlighted in the Google Gemini guide is that most people treat generative AI exactly like a traditional search engine.
Right.
You type in a few keywords, hit enter, and you expect magic. And the data shows that the average prompt people try is less than 9 words long.
9 words.
Yeah, less than 9 words. But the most fruitful, effective prompts average around 21 words, and they're packed with relevant context.
And that 9-word habit is exactly why people get frustrated. I mean, when you treat an AI like a search engine, you get a generic search engine style result. If you just write an email about the Q3 numbers, you're going to get a very robotic, bland email.
Yeah, nobody wants to read that.
Nobody.
Yeah.
To get high-value output, you have to provide a framework. The Gemini guide breaks a power prompt down into 4 main areas, and the first 2 are persona and task.
Right, so persona is basically telling the AI who it's supposed to be.
Exactly. You literally assign it a role. Are they a meticulous program manager, a persuasive public relations expert, or maybe a senior software engineer?
Which changes how it talks.
It fundamentally shifts the vocabulary and the perspective the model uses. Then comes the task. This is your verb or command, and you have to be highly specific here. Don't just say, help with strategy. Say, draft a 1-page executive summary or brainstorm a 3-phase campaign strategy.
Okay, so I know who the AI is, and I've given it a specific task. But how do I stop it from giving me a generic, or worse, a hallucinated answer? I mean, if it doesn't know my business, assigning it a persona isn't going to magically make it accurate.
Well, that is where the third and arguably most important piece comes in, which is context. You have to ground the AI in your reality. One of the best tips from the Google Guide is using the @ symbol followed by a file name to tag specific documents right in your prompt.
Oh, I love that trick. So instead of just vaguely summarizing a topic, you summarize this topic using @Q3 financial report.
Yes, it essentially forces the AI to look at your actual data and build its response strictly from that confined universe rather than guessing based on the broader internet. And then the final piece is format. You have to tell the AI exactly how you want the output to look. Are we talking bullet points? A table with 3 columns?
A punchy paragraph, right?
Right. If you combine persona, task, context, and format, you cross that 21-word threshold and start getting real results.
That makes total sense.
What's fascinating here is that the very best prompting isn't a one-and-done transaction. It's conversational and iterative. People often make the mistake of typing out a prompt, getting a result they don't really love, and then deleting everything to start completely over from scratch.
Which is exhausting.
Completely exhausting. You wouldn't do that with a human colleague.
No.
If a coworker hands you a draft and it's too formal, you don't fire them and hire someone new. You just say, hey, can you make this a bit more conversational? You just follow up. If it missed a key metric, tell it to weave that metric in.
The guides also mention a brilliant hack for when you are just totally stuck staring at a blank screen. You can actually make the AI your prompt editor.
Yes, this is a great one.
You literally type, make this a power prompt, and then you paste your basic 9-word idea. The AI will rewrite your flimsy prompt into a highly detailed, structured instruction that you can then copy and feed right back into the system.
It essentially trains you on how to talk to it.
Exactly. Okay, so I've got my 21-word power prompt down. I know how to talk to the AI and iterate, but what should I actually be asking it to do so I can save some time?
That's the big question.
Right, and that brings up this concept from Clairvaux. She's the chief product officer at LaunchDarkly, mentioned in the OpenAI manuals. She suggests building an anti-to-do list.
I love the anti-to-do list.
Yeah, you make a list of everything in your workday that you find incredibly annoying, monitoring key performance indicators, summarizing endless Slack threads, waiting days for a designer to mock up a prototype so you can finally move a project forward. That list of annoyances is your starting line.
And to help you systematically tackle that list, the OpenAI Enterprise Guide breaks down the fundamental ways AI can be applied into 6 core primitives.
Yeah.
The first is content creation, which we touched on with prompting, but it's more than just writing emails. It's about standardizing tone across a global company or instantly repurposing a dense technical brief into a consumer-friendly blog post. The second primitive is research. With tools like Deep Research, AI can synthesize hundreds of online sources into a comprehensive report in minutes. The data shows this saves an average of 4 hours per complex task.
4 hours is huge. And the third primitive is coding, and I want to pause here because the examples and the sources are wild. They mentioned Tinder engineers using AI to generate complex bash scripts so they can tackle the tedious server chores they used to avoid. Wait, Tinder engineers are using AI to write scripts just to avoid chores? That's amazing.
It really is. A bash script is basically a set of command line instructions that automate routine maintenance tasks on a computer or server. It's incredibly useful, but writing them can be tedious and finicky, so the engineers just have the AI write the scripts, freeing them up to work on the actual dating app features.
But the guide points out it isn't just for software engineers. Look at Poshmark. They have regular business users leveraging AI to write Python scripts that reconcile millions of spreadsheet rows. That kind of heavy data work used to be totally out of reach unless you knew how to code. Which rolls right into the fourth primitive, data analysis. And the real breakthrough here isn't just that AI can read a spreadsheet. It's that a non-technical manager can now take a screenshot of a messy, complicated dashboard, upload the image, and get a synthesized trend report without ever submitting a ticket to the data science team.
It democratizes data interpretation completely. The fifth primitive is ideation and strategy, which is all about using AI to navigate ambiguity. There's a fascinating example from Match Group. They use AI to simulate focus groups. Designers upload wireframes of a new app interface and ask the AI to critique the design while acting as a specific user persona.
Hold on, let me push back on that. Using AI for a focus group.
Yeah.
How can a language model give you genuine human reactions to a new app interface? Isn't the whole point of a focus group that humans are unpredictable and nuanced?
That is exactly the initial skepticism most people have. But think about what a language model actually is. It's been trained on a massive swath of human interaction, behavioral psychology, and design feedback across the entire internet.
Okay, I see where you're going.
When you ask it to simulate a focus group of, say, visually impaired users or impatient teenagers, it synthesizes the known behavioral patterns of those demographics. It doesn't replace the final human test, but it gives the design team instant, actionable feedback to fix glaring issues before they ever spend the money and time on a real-world focus group.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. It's a high-speed filter. And the final, sixth primitive, is automations. This is where you create repeatable routines, like having the AI automatically pull your weekly financial data, format it into an executive overview, and flag anomalies every Friday morning.
But having all these options can be overwhelming for people. So how do you prioritize? The sources recommend relying on a classic impact effort framework. You want to start in the upper left quadrant, high return on investment, low effort.
Right. Don't try to reinvent your entire company's supply chain logistics on day one.
Exactly. Start by building a simple prompt template that automates your weekly status report. Those small, individual self-service wins are what build the organizational momentum needed to tackle the bigger, more complex projects.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because once those individual wins start compounding, you begin to see how the world's biggest companies are rolling this out at scale. The enterprise frontier is a whole different ballgame. And the first major lesson from the OpenAI manuals is that you cannot just guess if the AI is working. You have to prove it.
You absolutely have to prove it.
Morgan Stanley is the prime example here. They operate in a highly regulated, sensitive relationship business.
They couldn't just turn an AI on and hope it gave good financial advice.
Exactly. Let's pause on the concept of evils for a second, because the guide hammers on this. Morgan Stanley didn't just ask the AI a question, nod, and say, looks good, ship it. They rigidly tested it.
They created a literal scoring system. They ran evaluations, or evils, on translation accuracy and summarization quality. They even pitted the AI against their own top human expert trainers.
Wow.
They would ask a complex financial question, get an answer from the human expert, get an answer from the AI, and blindly grade who gave the better, more relevant advice.
That level of rigid testing is exactly why 98% of their financial advisors actually trust the system and use it every single day. It has drastically reduced the time it takes them to search through massive volumes of internal documents. And that leads to the next big enterprise lesson. Get the AI directly into the hands of your domain experts. Don't restrict the building of these tools to just your IT department.
The people closest to the problem are always the best ones to solve it. Look at the global banking leader BBVA. They empowered their regular employees to build custom AI tools. The result was staggering. In just 5 months, their employees created 2,900 custom GPTs.
That is wild, 2,900.
One of the most impactful was a bot built by the legal team. It now answers 40,000 internal policy and compliance questions a year. Keep in mind, this wasn't built by a software engineer who had to interview the legal team for weeks to understand the requirements. It was built directly by the legal experts who knew exactly what the pain points and nuances were.
And companies are also embedding AI directly into their products to drive revenue, not just fix internal ops. Indeed, the massive job site used AI to explain to job seekers exactly why a specific job was a good fit for their unique background based on their resume. It completely humanized a normally very cold transactional experience.
And the results were immediate.
Right. The business impact was a 20% increase in started job applications. Or look at Lowe's. They fine-tuned models on their specific complex home improvement product catalog. By teaching the AI their specific industry terminology, they improved their e-commerce search tagging accuracy by 20%.
But if we look at the most staggering lesson from the enterprise frontier, it's the value of investing early for compounding returns. The timeline is critical here. Klarna introduced an AI assistant to handle customer service. Because they started early, iterated, and refined it relentlessly, that assistant now handles 2/3 of all their customer service chats globally. It is literally doing the work of hundreds of agents. It cut the average resolution time from 11 minutes down to just 2 minutes, and it is projected to drive a $40 million profit improvement.
That is a massive return on investment.
But that kind of return only happens when you let the organizational knowledge compound over time. You have to get in the reps.
So what does this all mean? It means we are moving far beyond just chatting with an AI in a web browser. And that brings us to the final frontier, building autonomous agents. Up until now, we've mostly been talking about standard language models. You ask a question, it gives an answer.
A simple back and forth.
But the OpenAI guide makes a very sharp distinction here. An agent is fundamentally different. An agent doesn't just answer a question. It accomplishes multi-step tasks independently. It controls the execution of a workflow. It recognizes when that workflow is actually complete. And it has access to external tools to make things happen in the real world.
To really understand when you should build an agent, you have to look at where traditional software fails. Think about a traditional rules-based engine, like a standard fraud detection system. It operates like a strict checklist. If X happens, flag Y. If a credit card is used in 2 different countries in 1 hour, decline it.
Right. Very rigid.
Exactly. But agents don't work like checklists. They work like seasoned human investigators. They can evaluate subtle context, consider ambiguous situations, and identify suspicious activity even when a rigid rule hasn't technically been broken. You build an agent when you have complex decision-making, unwieldy rule sets, or workflows that rely heavily on unstructured data, like interpreting the tone and urgency of a natural language customer email.
To build one of these digital investigators, the manual says you need 3 core components. First is the model, which acts as the brain powering the reasoning and the logic. Second are the tools, which are basically the hands. These are the external functions or APIs the agent uses to actually do things, like query a transaction database, update a customer relationship management system, or physically send an email.
The hands are what give it real power.
Right. And third are the instructions. These are the guidelines that explicitly tell the agent how to behave, what corporate policies to follow, and how to handle edge cases.
Once you have the brain, the hands, and the instructions, you have to decide how to orchestrate them. The guides outline three main orchestration patterns. The simplest is the single-agent system. This is one model, equipped with a few tools, running in a loop until an exit condition is met, like producing a final output or realizing it needs to ask the user for more information. It's the easiest to maintain. But as workflows get more complex, you move to the manager pattern.
I absolutely love the manager pattern. It is exactly what it sounds like. You have one central manager agent that talks to the user. But behind the scenes, that manager is delegating tasks to a team of highly specialized agents, essentially treating them like tools.
Do you give an example of how that flows?
Yeah. So imagine a user uploads a massive document and asks to translate it into 3 different languages. The manager agent receives the request, but it doesn't do the translation itself. It farms the text out to a dedicated Spanish agent, a French agent, and an Italian agent simultaneously. Those specialists do the work, hand it back to the manager, and the manager synthesizes it all back to the user seamlessly. The user only ever talks to the manager.
It's incredibly efficient.
Yeah.
And then you have the decentralized pattern, where agents operate as peers and hand off control entirely. Imagine a customer asking a chat interface, "Where is my order?" They are first talking to a triage agent. The triage agent realizes this is a shipping tracking question, so it formally hands off the entire conversation, along with all the context, to an order management agent.
Just routing it directly to the expert.
Right. And later in that same chat, if the user asks about buying a different product, the order management agent can hand them off to a sales agent. There's no central manager overseeing everything. The agents just route the work to the specialist who is best equipped to handle it in that moment.
Now, obviously, you don't just set a bunch of autonomous agents loose on your company's databases without serious protection.
Absolutely not.
The sources outline very strict guardrails. You have to layer your defenses. You use relevance classifiers to make sure the agent doesn't get tricked into talking about off-topic subjects. You use moderation APIs to block harmful inputs. But the most interesting defense mechanism to me are the tripwires.
Tripwires are essential. A tripwire is a specific guardrail that runs silently in the background, concurrently with the agent. For example, you might have a churn detection tripwire. If a customer is chatting with a support agent and casually mentions they might cancel their subscription, the tripwire instantly flags that as a high-risk situation.
And that triggers the ultimate guardrail human intervention.
Yes, if an agent attempts a sensitive, high-stakes action like authorizing a massive financial refund, or if it repeatedly fails to understand the user, it must be programmed to gracefully halt execution and escalate the issue to a human. Agents are incredibly powerful, but having human oversight for high-risk actions is absolutely non-negotiable.
Okay, let's bring this all together for you, the listener. We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We started with the absolute basics, moving past the generic 9-word search and crafting a precise 21-word power prompt using a persona, a task, context with the @file symbol, and a specific format.
The foundational skills.
Yes. Then we talked about how to find your AI superpower by looking at your anti-to-do list of annoyances and applying the 6 primitives, whether that's analyzing dashboard screenshots or simulating focus groups. We looked at how massive enterprises like Morgan Stanley and Klarna are driving tens of millions of dollars in value by testing rigidly with evils and getting AI directly into the hands of their domain experts. And finally, we explored how to orchestrate autonomous agents that can execute entire workflows while navigating complex, ambiguous decisions, just like a seasoned investigator.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the key takeaway from all of these manuals is that this is not theoretical future tech. This is a highly practical toolkit that you can use to rethink how you work today. By automating the repetitive parts of your day, you give yourself back the time to focus on high-value, strategic thinking. You're essentially building your own personal team of specialized super assistants.
It really is a superpower waiting to be unlocked. But before we wrap up, there is one final detail buried in the source material about the future of agents that is just mind-bending.
The sources mention a new agentic capability called Operator. Unlike the agents we just discussed that rely on specific APIs and database connections to take action, Operator leverages its own virtual browser.
Meaning it literally uses the internet the way you do. It can navigate the web, visually process a web page, click on buttons, fill in forms, and gather data exactly like a human would without needing any special back-end integrations.
This raises an important question. We've spent this whole deep dive talking about how to build a team of AI agents to do your work for you. But if tools like Operator can browse the open internet and execute workflows entirely on their own, what happens when the majority of your colleagues executing the routine tasks of a business are actually autonomous agents, as they take over the pure execution of work? How are you going to redefine what it means to bring uniquely human value to the table tomorrow?
A profound thought to leave you with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the AI frontier. Now, go look at your anti-to-do list, write that power prompt, and start building your future.